Halfway through the week, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop here on this Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, and got a couple of things to tackle. Everything from a roundtable discussion about attorneys general going after the Trump administration and Chicago still defending the migrant sanctuary policies, plus roundtables about supplemental nutrition assistance program funding. So a lot of things involved in all of these issues and more. Of course, you can go to thecentersquare.com where you can sign up for the newsletter to get the latest Illinois headlines at thecentersquare.com. Let's go to the right page there. Go to states, click Illinois, and you'll find it. All right, so you can find headlines like legislators blaming housing affordability as Chicago's homelessness trends upwards. You can find out about a highway project that some are criticizing is possibly taking private property for eminent domain, but so much more, including the quick hits, which are just quick digestible little bits that you can stay updated with, but more you can find at thecentersquare.com, including this story that Jim Talamonte put together about lawsuit inferno and how Illinois is now in that category as a judicial hellhole instead of being a tort reform trailblazer. And you can read about that, especially with Senate Bill 328 that is pending on the governor's desk. So go read more at thecentersquare.com. But obviously, you wake up here each and every weekday morning to get Illinois in Focus, where we unpack things that are being discussed. And recently, there were several highlighted events, including with the governor, with the Chicago mayor, and with the Illinois Attorney General. So we'll tackle that here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Again, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily.
When you go to get your SNAP benefits, when you go to sign up for SNAP benefits, what they want us to do is to say, we don't believe you about what your rent is. So you've got to go home and get your rent bill and come back and show it to us before we can approve your SNAP benefits. How about your electric bill?
The federal government is correctly telling the state of Illinois, clean up your SNAP program, be more accountable, hold your people accountable, hold your residents accountable. And Governor Pritzker, has the gall to tell people that this is a tax cut for the rich.
So a little bit of back and forth there yesterday. Governor J.B. Pritzker in East St. Louis talking about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and I got reaction from Republican State Senator Andrew Chesney. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus. The live chat's always lively. And we've talked about the Food Assistance Program, SNAP, several times now, especially with the legislation that President Donald Trump enacted. That's the big, beautiful bill, all kinds of elements in there. I mean, we've talked about the SALT deduction cap being lifted and how that benefits a high-tax state like Illinois. We've talked about the issue of school choice and a tax credit scholarship program that the federal government's starting up. Very similar to what Illinois had in place with the Invest in Kids, but obviously Illinois has to opt into that. The Medicaid issues that Democrats say Republicans are trying to throw people off of Medicaid by implementing certain types of requirements, like You have to be either, if you're able-bodied, looking for work, or working or volunteering at least 20 hours a week. And the same seems to be now for SNAP, for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So the governor's been asked about SNAP, not necessarily about the issue of what the Trump administration did, but also the issue of the error rates. Man, Illinois has a higher error rate than the national average. And the error rate, the payment error rate, includes overpayments and underpayments. And Illinois combined is about 11+%, but when you just look at the overpayments, Illinois is 10+%, again, higher than the national average for the error payments. But yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker instead wanted to focus on what he said were roadblocks and barriers and red tape for people who are wanting to get Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. Again, the governor down in East St. Louis yesterday.
They're not really trying to root out. They say they're trying to root out fraud and abuse, right? That's what they say. But it's a blatant attempt to make it harder for people to feed their families. And you know why they want to do that? Because they couldn't be cruel, could they? But let's assume they're not cruel. You know what they're trying to do? They're trying to take money away from this program and truly, not trying, they just did it, and give huge tax cuts to the wealthiest people in this country. Honestly, taking things away from people who need it and giving it to people who don't need it, that doesn't seem right to me. Does it seem right to you?
So the governor blaming Republicans for what he says are new barriers and red tape for individuals seeking to have taxpayer-subsidized food assistance through SNAP. Republican State Senator Andrew Chesney said that Republicans are just looking to make sure that SNAP is there for those who need it most.
Republicans are just asking for accountability. Republicans are saying if you want to get a subsidy from the taxpayers, if you want grandma and grandpa and Aunt Ethel to pay for your food stamps, and you have the ability as a 25-year-old to work, get off your butt and work. I don't think that's controversial. Why are we asking people on fixed incomes to subsidize people that are able-bodied with no dependents? Why are we asking them to do something? Volunteer, do something. That's only controversial up until the last couple of years when the Democrat Party has not become the working class party. They've become the party of woke. They've been the party of gender dysphoria. They've been the party of the Democrats' elites that, want $500 meals when they locked us down in our basements and told us we couldn't leave our homes. But they went to posh restaurants like the governor of California, or when Governor Pritzker sent his family to Florida to a free state. These people are just, they have no backbone. They have very little common sense. And they will say whatever it takes, Greg, whatever it takes to get elected. And they don't care.
And Governor J.B. Pritzker, Chesney said, is a billionaire who stashes his money off of the continental U.S., and he's only interested in re-election to a third term. And Republicans have been consistently critical of the governor and the possibility that he could run for president in 2028, which would be in the middle of the governor's 4-year term. So obviously some politics at play here. The governor saying Republicans want to take benefits away from working people, while the Republicans are saying that Democrats lack common sense and don't care about accountability. Again, back to what the governor called red tape concerning people getting SNAP benefits under the new Trump administration.
The more burdensome they're making the system, the more likely it is that people will fall off on their own. So imagine you need it, but I gave you the example of someone who just doesn't happen to have their electric bill when they're sitting there signing up perhaps for Medicaid, and now they'd like to sign up for SNAP. You don't have the proof of how much you're paying for your utilities. Well, do you have time? I mean, you may be holding down a job, and you may have 3 kids, and you may not be able to go back and forth home to this office where you've got to present these things. So you may just decide, I can't do it anymore. Put on the poorest people in our state, the harder it is for us to deliver for them because the federal government has put up these barriers.
So again, red tape and barriers. I asked Chesney about, listen, I mean, the taxpayers have all kinds of barriers they have to jump through just to pay their taxes. Businesses have all kinds of red tape that they have to go through just to run a business that ultimately is taxed, and they pay all these taxes. So is it too much to ask for those who are going to be benefiting from that to prove they're eligible to benefit from that? A question that Chesney addresses.
Republicans are just asking for accountability. Republicans are saying if you want to get a subsidy from the taxpayers, if you want grandma and grandpa and Aunt Ethel to pay for your food stamps, and you have the ability as a 25-year-old to work, get off your butt and work. I don't think that's controversial. Why are we asking people on fixed incomes to subsidize people that are able-bodied with no dependents? Why are we asking them to do something? Volunteer, do something. That's only controversial up until the last couple of years.
And again, Chesney talking about the ongoing problems with supplemental nutrition assistance programs, other taxpayer-funded programs, and encouraging that the governor go after waste, fraud, and abuse. And the governor recognized maybe there's something to say about the types of foods that people can get with SNAP. Like, should we steer them away from junk food? Again, here's the governor.
I don't disagree with you that we ought to be looking at, making sure that people actually have the resources to buy the things that are good for them, and that we discourage people from buying, candy and things that aren't good for the kids and for families. But importantly, you got to provide the resources for people before we start talking about what we're going to cut out of people's diets. How about just making sure that people actually have something to eat? And so that concerns me greatly. But I don't disagree. I've talked to a number of people about whether or not, what kinds of things are bad for people's diets and harm their health as a result. And maybe that SNAP benefits should be directed more toward those healthy, when we talked about, meats and fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and so on.
So the governor talking about the importance of fresh foods, vegetables, and nutritious foods instead of getting a bunch of junk food. But you saw others at the table. The Illinois Retail Merchants Association was there as well with the governor. They had a food bank that was there as well. Food banks are not SNAP. They're locally derived and organized donations and such. So it's like an extra safety net that a lot of communities have for those who still need assistance or find themselves in a short-term situation where SNAP can't be provided as quick because government obviously is a bureaucracy and such. But the Pritzker administration was there as well. The Secretary of the Department of Human Services was addressing the question of how much the Trump administration's policies on SNAP is going to cost Illinois state taxpayers for a program that traditionally had been funded primarily by federal taxpayers, but they say this is changing now to where the state's going to have to kick in, and it could be hundreds of millions of dollars in extra added state taxpayer costs.
All of these changes, which are purposely bureaucratic and burdensome, will add additional cost and administrative complexity to the state, both in systems and staffing, for an overall cost to the state of $800 million every year. That end result could ultimately be a reduction in programs that most help the people we serve.
$800 million a year of extra added costs to Illinois state taxpayers, according to the Pritzker administration. Some of that could be because of the error rate that the state of Illinois has, and they have to get it under a certain error-rated percentage to not be on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars. But they also say implementing the policies and procedures for what they say are extra checks to ensure eligibility for receiving those benefits is going to cost $100+ million as well. Chesney says, listen, he's got some suggestions on where they can find that extra money to pay for these types of benefits.
We can stop funding illegal immigrants. That'd be a good place to start. We can always look at waste, fraud, and abuse. Governor Pritzker handed out so many and approved so many programs that have been just embroiled in corruption and fraud, and we see indictment after indictment and inspector general report after inspector general report of people that are misusing federal and state programs, and Governor Pritzker remains silent. Many of them are state employees, and so we again as Republicans want our most vulnerable to get programs that they deserve, but we don't want that to become a lifestyle. Governor Pritzker wants to centralize that power, wants everybody to be on that government dole, and so he can then pick the winners and losers within those programs. He can implement his own DEI, his own reparations, his own winners and losers. You get a grant, you don't get a grant. You're connected to the most powerful, you're not, so you get it, you don't. And so again, Governor Pritzker doesn't want to address the underlying issues in Illinois. We're taxed too much. We're losing population. People don't want to live here. He has had no solution for property taxes. He has passed billions and billions of dollars in tax increases. The federal government is correctly telling the state of Illinois, clean up your SNAP program. Be more accountable. Hold your people accountable. Hold your residents accountable. And Governor Pritzker, has the gall to tell people that this is a tax cut for the rich. Governor Pritzker parks his money in the Grand Cayman Islands. He was the one that sent his family to Florida when he locked down the state of Illinois. I mean, there's nobody that contradicts himself more than Governor Pritzker. And now he's running for a third term and has little interest in the state of Illinois. Now he's going in Texas and he's bouncing around North Carolina, doing his little liberal circles, trying to get everybody excited about him. He's a billionaire governor that has never worked an honest day in his life, and his toxic policies are destroying the state. He is asking us to live in an environment that he himself is unwilling to live. He lives around, skyscrapers and walls with armed security, with $20 million vacation homes, while we are saddled with the aftermath of his very toxic and liberal policies that are destroying the state.
So there you go. Some of the back and forth over SNAP and new work requirements, which aren't new. Apparently, it's all stuff that was going on before COVID that they lifted during COVID, saying, it's an emergency. We need people to get assistance, so we're just going to send money out. Well, that's changing under the Trump administration, getting back to some checks to make sure the people who are eligible for SNAP get the SNAP. And same thing for the Medicaid as well. So we'll continue to see how this unfolds. And whether or not Democrats who some may characterize or saying the sky is falling, how they may or may not be correct down the line, because a lot of what they're saying is estimations. There's 1.9 million people in Illinois on SNAP, and the Pritzker administration says more than 300,000 will lose their food benefits. Is that really going to pan out, or are we going to see that these individuals are going to need this food and they properly were of need in that area? So anyways, okay, we'll watch it and continue to update you. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Go to the website, thecentersquare.com, get the headlines, and subscribe here on YouTube to wake up with us each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily. The state of Illinois continues to pay the Illinois Attorney General's office to defend the state against what some are saying is the ongoing conflict of the Trump administration and Democrat-run jurisdictions, especially in the space of migrant sanctuary policies and so much more. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop here each and every weekday morning, and you can get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. So we've been tracking, obviously, the ongoing loggerheads that the state of Illinois has with the administration of President Donald Trump. And ever since Trump came into office, there have been lawsuits back and forth over executive orders, from the birthright citizenship issue to the federal government looking to close down the Department of Education, to the withholding of certain grant dollars, to energy policies and so on. But one thing that we've been watching real close is the case that the DOJ brought against the state of Illinois, Cook County, and the city of Chicago over migrant sanctuary policies. Now, we saw last week that the district court judge, a federal judge in the Northern District, dismissed the DOJ's challenge against migrant sanctuary policies, but said that the DOJ can file an amended complaint by August 22nd, and the case could proceed then. So we'll see if that happens, right? We still got some time here, about 24 days before the DOJ has to file that amended complaint, or else the case is dismissed with prejudice. But it's obviously sparked continued debate about cooperation between local authorities and immigration and customs enforcement officials. You had last night the Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul hold a roundtable discussion with attorneys general from other areas of the country, including New York Attorney General Letitia James. But just to go to the Attorney General's Twitter page here, he did put out a statement on Friday with the district court's dismissal of the lawsuit against the state of Illinois. Here is what Kwame Raoul's office had to say. I'm pleased with today's decision, which follows the Seventh Circuit's dismissal of a similar lawsuit filed during the first Trump administration. Today's decision could not be possible without the dedicated team of lawyers and staff who've worked tirelessly defending the latest attempt by the Trump administration to dismantle the Trust Act. The Trust Act is the measure that ultimately said that local law enforcement cannot cooperate with federal immigration officials. And then you have the Way Forward Act, which was also part of this lawsuit, and that was a measure that says that we're not using local jail facilities anymore for immigration and customs enforcement, and the jails can't communicate or ask about the immigration status of a detainee. But anyways, back to the Attorney General here. He says, Illinois' Trust Act acknowledges that civil immigration enforcement is the responsibility of the federal government, and the state and local law enforcement resources are most appropriately utilized protecting communities in which they serve. Raoul says he'll continue to defend the constitutionality of the Trust Act against the Trump administration's cruel and draconian immigrant activities. Here is Attorney General Raoul last night talking about the ongoing conflict he has with the Trump administration.
Unfortunately, we have a president who, as recently as a couple of months ago, when asked on national TV whether he had to follow the Constitution, answered, "I don't know. I'm not a lawyer." On January 20th of this year, we inaugurated a president. We did not coronate a king. We have a president who, with his administration and those who have turned a blind eye in Congress, has violated our Constitution and laws in a manner that has harmed the people. Today, we gather here to hear about those harms. We will also hear in response from
Again, holding this roundtable up in Chicago last night with the attorneys general from several states, including Letitia James, who was the attorney general that was able to secure felony convictions against Donald Trump, the former president at the time, and a candidate for president, now the president. You have James now with questions of her own about whether or not she's under investigation for certain types of things. I think it's real estate involved. But here she is last night with Attorney General Kwame Raoul in Chicago talking about why they're fighting.
You see, I am from New York City and I represent the state of New York, but I live in Brooklyn. And as most of you who have ever visited Brooklyn, it's a very diverse borough. And each and every day, countless number of immigrants fall in my arms crying, afraid to go to school, afraid to go to their houses of worship, afraid to go to hospitals, afraid to go to court to get orders of protection, afraid to serve as witnesses to horrific crimes, afraid. Businesses are now closed, shuttered. The life and the culture of Brooklyn and New York City, and I would even argue New York State and all across this nation, they're hiding from government. This federal government is at war with its people, and at war with the Constitution, at war with the rule of law, at war with all that we know is true, at war with our values.
So Letitia James using war rhetoric in conversations about policy differences that can be handled in the judiciary. I talked with State Senator Andrew Chesney yesterday. We talked about the SNAP stuff, but I also had to get his reaction to the ongoing push here for Democrats not to cooperate with ICE.
If they cared, they would lower our property taxes. If they cared, they would cooperate with ICE. If they cared, they would start bringing common sense back to the state of Illinois and stop blaming Donald Trump. Oh, well, record high stock market, great trade deals, secure border, lots of great things happening.
So Chesney saying that Democrats are just posturing for politics. On to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson asked a question yesterday about his full force of government approach to end smoking, but what about the full force of government approach to deal with, criminal illegal aliens?
Well, last week, you said that you were going to use the full force of government to stop smoking on the CTA. Many people, hundreds of thousands of people asked me why you wouldn't use the full force of government to remove illegal aliens like Jose Luis.
Thank you for the question.
Mendoza,
Thank you for the question. We got it. Thank you.
I appreciate the question. I mean, as far as the city of Chicago is concerned, our local police department does not dub as federal ICE agents. It's just that simple. The Trump administration attempted to sue the city of Chicago, a district court, rebuked that suit because as a welcoming city, in order for us to continue to build a safe, affordable city, the people of Chicago have to have trust in their local law enforcement. And that trust is being built, it's being restored, and I'm going to ensure that that trust moves in a direction that allows for us to continue to have the safest, most affordable big city in America.
And that trust, he says, is important to have people go and report crimes and not be worried about getting caught up in immigration enforcement. But again, with the lack of cooperation between local officials and ICE officials, you have Tom Homan, the border czar under the Trump administration, saying that just means these sanctuary jurisdictions are going to get exactly what they don't want, and that's more ICE officers on the streets conducting enforcement on the streets rather than going to a secure jail and having a secure and safe handover of a non-citizen to ICE in cooperation with local officials. So again, it's going to be what did they say, flood the zone. So we're going to possibly see that, and that's what Homan says the sanctuary jurisdictions didn't want. Now back to Chesney, he says that Johnson and Democrats don't understand that their policies are harming people.
Yeah, he's in education and he does a very poor job because his approval rating's at 9%, and by every measurement, that's an F. And so he bounces somewhere between a 9 and 12% approval rating in a liberal city because he just doesn't get it. He doesn't get it with Republicans, independents, and not even the majority of the Democrats that elected him. And so I certainly don't expect him to pivot and to become more common sense. He's going to double down on these Chicago teacher union policies that have destroyed not only the state, but are destroying that city. And so this is what happens when you allow the public sector unions to get too powerful. They handpick idiots like Brandon Johnson that have no experience and have no ability to govern. And they have a 9 to 12% approval rating, and they're scaring the hell out of everybody in the city, particularly the businesses and many of the residents that are now fleeing that city for areas that are less punitive. And so what the mayor needs to do, and what the governor certainly needs to do, is not only encourage but demand more accountability. The governor should be demanding that Brandon Johnson work with these particular groups to start to curb some of that criminal activity that's taken place in the city of Chicago. But what he's actually doing is they're all getting along and pretending that everything is fine, and then asking you to look at a shiny object, which is now Donald Trump. And that's going to be a continuation for the next 3.5 years. Governor Pritzker talked about Bruce Rauner for the last 8 years and continues to blame him, even though the state legislature has been dominated by Democrats and liberal progressive Democrats for most of that time. And so now, the Democrat Party, Greg, has only an interest in really a few things, but primarily one is they want somebody to blame. That's what they do. It's a constant blame. City of Chicago has been dominated by Democrats for a half a century. High crime, terrible roads, crumbling infrastructure, terrible schools. Who's to blame for? Bruce Rauner? Donald Trump? No, it's the Democrats. It's J.B. Pritzker. It's Brandon Johnson. It's Lori Lightfoot. It's Rahm Emanuel. It's all those guys and gals. They just don't get it.
We'll continue to give you all sides of this as it's going to play out for the rest of the Trump administration. But obviously, ebb and flow as we get closer to the 2026 elections, as the political talk continues to heat up. But how's it impacting you? Hopefully we can get enough information out there for you to better discern how it does impact you. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus with the Center Square. That's all I got for you today. We've got a conversation we're going to be having a little bit later on today about a public service announcement campaign concerning red flag laws. So we'll actually talk with proponents of those red flag laws and the ad campaign that they're going to be bringing forward and what that means. So we'll be looking forward to that. Watching what else happens across the state. You've got Secretary of State Alexis Janulius wanting some insurance regulations. So that's going to happen today. And a variety of other things as well. So we'll keep an eye on it so you can get back to work and provide for your family. I get paid to watch what's going on, so I appreciate you guys trusting in what I bring to you each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Have a great Wednesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more. Don't forget, get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com and wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily, only with the Center Square.